I just knew that if we had Coach Chris Creighton on the program enough
Hmm.
times, we would eventually talk to him after he having won a bowl game. Now it took us 8 years. Granted, it took us 8 years to get that, but mission accomplished. A big win in the famous Idaho Potato Bowl. Yes, you heard me correctly. The Idaho Potato Bowl last month. Well, actually, 2 months ago. Apparently, now we're in February now, in mid to late December, and big win, and it capped off a 9-4 season. Finally got the bowl game monkey off his back. He's on the other end of our line. It's his birthday today, Coach Chris Creighton. Thank you, sir.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It's good talking to you again.
It's always good to talk to you, of course, no matter what the situation is. But this is especially nice for us because we as you know we have been supporting you and the
Oh yeah.
program for a number of years, and we kind of feel like your success is our success in a way. And of course, as you know, me being an alum, it's even more hits me even more so because my history with the school. But I just want to just first of all congratulate you. I didn't really get a chance. I know I did that via text, and you and I have texted back and forth, and that's fine. But I just wanted to personally congratulate you, and I truly am happy for you. And I know you're going to tell me it's the kids and it's not about you, but you've got to take some personal satisfaction out of finally doing this. No.
Well, no, just first of all, I mean, I know that it's a heartfelt congratulations, and you better feel a part of it. I mean, this is your school, you know. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
so I hope that every Eastern alum, takes great satisfaction and our team going and doing what it did. And yeah, like you mentioned, I mean, it's been 8 years or whatever for this. I'm going to be my 9th year here, going into my 10th, and
Right.
it is definitely a case of perseverance. So,
Yeah.
I was just going to outlast them, whatever it took. So, but we got it done.
You sure did. And it didn't start out so great. I was watching that game, of course, on television, and I said a few choice words, but midway through the first quarter, it did not look good. Off to a rocky start, and I said, "Oh, here we go again." And I remember I've got a Eastern Michigan Hurons messenger group on Facebook, and I texted the group and I said, "I am sick of losing bowl games." Now that I know that's a pessimistic attitude to take halfway through the first quarter. That's what I said. I'm sick of losing bowl games. And I walked away for a little while because I needed to get away from the television set. And I came back, and lo and behold, you guys had exploded. And we're
Yeah.
leading the game. We're in control of the game. Talk about how the team came out. I mean, I know that you as a coach you want to have your team come out, firing on all cylinders right from the get go. But what happened? Was the team tight? Was it a little nervous? What was your take on that?
Well, no, that's a good and fair question. I mean, whenever you haven't played for a month, we try to find the right formula for being ready, and you want to get off to a great start. And I talk about turnovers and takeaways till I'm blue in the face, and special
Right.
teams. I mean,
Right.
for 26 years, I've said the key to every game is, turnovers and takeaways and then special teams. And so that first half of that first quarter, we had a really an errant kick on the very first play, and then a penalty on that play. So I had great field position and go down and score. Right. And then we turned the ball over on our second possession. It was like a sack fumble. And so, we're down 13-0.
Mm-hmm.
And it's halfway through the first quarter, and it was special teams and turnovers.
Right.
But to our guys' credit, and I think it's, it was a microcosm, of the year. And I think in some ways, maybe a microcosm of the last decade. Our guys, just don't break. They just
Mm-hmm.
don't.
Right.
I mean, there's a resolve and a resiliency. And honestly, I just, it's uncommon. I mean, it is who, our team is. And, we didn't want to be down 13-0.
Mm-hmm.
We didn't want to lose to Toledo in the last 2 minutes on a 4th and 10,
Right.
to take us out of the MAC championship. but after that great disappointment, we won 4 straight games, and had the second best season in 131 year history, and so we're down 13-0, and then we roll off 28 straight points. Like you said, had the game, we're in pretty good shape there. So, I don't know if that answers your question, but I just know that our guys don't break ever.
Well, you know what, and I don't mean this. I'm not gonna. This is not a disparaging comment, but I was teasing that Eastern Michigan only wins bowl games when they play San Jose State every 35 years. But hey, that really seriously, that 1987, as you know, the 1987 game with Ronnie Adams and Coach Harker, whatever, that regardless of what happened in the Potato Bowl, will always live on in Eastern lore as arguably the greatest moment in program history, mainly because the team was such an underdog. I think they were I want to say 14 or 17 point underdogs. You, on the other hand, that was not the situation. Although San Jose State presented some problems, though. I mean, the final score doesn't indicate that, but I thought that San Jose State was a very formidable opponent.
No question. Yeah, no, I mean, absolutely. The Mountain West is a really good league, and I mean, they just won it 2 years ago. So yeah, they're a very good team. We were fortunate to win. There's no question. Our bowl games too, I'll have to say that, Liberty got us. I mean, there's no question. Malik Willis, went off. But all of those other bowl games came down to,
Pittsburgh,
the last series or the last play of the game. And these aren't excuses, but I will tell you this, that the last 2 quarterbacks that we played in bowl games were the top 2 quarterbacks taken in the draft last year. And both started games as rookies. So, I mean, they're pretty good.
Absolutely, there's no question about that. I'm curious. By the way, we're talking with Eastern Michigan football coach Chris Creighton here on the Knee Jerks. I'm Greg, from my WordPress Out of Bounds blog, and Big Al is here. Of course, we'll bring Big Al in a second. I'm curious. Did you, Bo Schembechler used to, as you know, had a not great bowl record, and took a lot of heat for it. He had some very good regular season teams, and just for whatever reason, had difficulty winning bowl games. I think it was like 2-9 or 3-9 or something like that. And it got to a point where he started to change a little bit the regimen of when he would take the kids out there, the practice. He was trying, just kind of grasping at straws, trying to change the luck, if you will. Did you find yourself, even if it was subconsciously, preparing the team differently for this bowl game as opposed to others, or were you just pretty much the same as you'd always been?
Yeah, we talk about all that. I mean, you're going to play in a bowl game. When you're getting to 7 wins, we're at 8 wins.
Yeah.
And so we know we're going to play. We don't know when. We have our banquet on the day that you find out, and so you have a week of knowing that you're going to be in a bowl game, but not knowing when or where or who.
Sure. Right.
And so, we have a December calendar that has, honestly, 6 different contingencies, right? So, all right, if we play this first weekend, then we're off the road on this day. We practice these days. We go here, and then if you're playing, we could have played in the Arizona Bowl, which was, on either the 30th or 31st of December. So now, it's a whole different, calendar. So that's the first thing you do. But then when you get into the actual planning and the practices, we know how many practices we need. We know how many kind of shakedown practices, because we haven't been doing it in a while, that we need. And, we don't end up changing, all that much. Other than the Lending Tree Bowl, we played, really good football in all of the bowl games. We just, we lost to a 10-win, I think, conference champ, in the Bahamas Bowl in the last series of the game. Then in the Camellia Bowl, it was a walk-off, really long field goal with the Buffalo Bills starting kicker. And then, the Pitt game was a game that we were winning
Mm-hmm.
for 59 minutes and whatever it was. I mean, 13 seconds.
Right.
So, just kind of staying with it, and guys believing and preparing, and, got to take the ball away, take care of the ball, and win on special teams.
Let's bring Big Al in. What you got for Coach Creighton?
I don't know if I call it a question, more of a comment, but I know over the past several years, college football is going through a huge upheaval with the playoffs and how the postseason and bowl game season is seen. And there's a lot of talk about there's too many bowl games. Yet, when I watched your bowl game and the reaction of the players, how they, after winning, it was really to them, maybe for a lot of these guys, the last game they ever play, a very important game for these guys. I guess it really drives home the fact that there is a reason for these bowl games, and I think it's more than just making money. It's giving the players one last experience of being college athletes.
I'll tell you what, I mean, just to kind of add to your angle there, football, I mean, the NFL, they're playing 19 games or whatever it is, and your body just can't hold up. But other than your body not being able to hold up, I mean, our guys would want to play as many games as they possibly could. I mean, they love football. They love competing. They love trying to do things that people say can't be done. And, so, I mean, it was an awesome trip. Very, very meaningful experience, for our guys. And, I mean, if they want to take away the Rose Bowl and the Orange Bowl, cause those guys don't care, that's fine. Yeah. But leave the Potato Bowl and the Bahamas and the other bowls for us. Cause we love it.
Yeah, I'm glad you asked that question, because Al had brought that up a few weeks ago on the program, and I thought he made a really good point about that, and I'm glad that he was able to ask you that question. Speaking of playoffs, Coach, I mentioned about my Facebook group, and I asked the folks there if they had any questions that they wanted me to ask you tonight, and I do have one. I'm just going to read this verbatim because I don't want to lose the texture of the question. Coach, if you win the MAC championship next season, what's next for you in EMU football? Do you believe EMU could get in the CFP, I guess that's college football playoff, when the tournament expands to 12 teams? That's the question.
Yeah. So I think it would take for any MAC team, I think it would take an undefeated season. And then even then, like until we go through it, I don't, somebody always gets left out, right? I mean, there's a cutoff. So I think they're trying to secure it so that, the best group of 5 team, would be in the playoff. And by the way, whoever, accepted the name of group instead of fantastic or phenomenal 5, I'll never forgive them. So, we would have to be named, the best team in the phenomenal or fantastic 5 in order to go to the playoff. And so, there's always going to be someone that is going to have to say, you know what, we're doing it. Eastern Michigan, they're undefeated. And so, the Boise State 1-loss team, or you know what I mean? The whoever, the Tulsa, 1-loss team, we're not taking them. So, but yeah, I absolutely think it's possible. Going undefeated is obviously really, really, really difficult, but someone is going to end up having a really special year, in the MAC, and they're going to get to go to the playoff.
Well, we talked about mission. I said mission accomplished at the top of this discussion, but that was in relation to the bowl game, of course. Winning a bowl game, getting that monkey off your back. Now, we didn't mention what you also accomplished, what the team accomplished this year, was winning the Michigan MAC, which is becoming the champions of the 3 Michigan schools, Eastern, Central, and Western. You won that, but you didn't win. What you didn't win, which drove me crazy too. You mentioned that Toledo game, which drove me crazy. You didn't win the MAC championship outright. And is that the next thing now that's got to get on the bucket list?
Yeah, no, that is that's been there. I promise you that.
Right.
No question. And yeah, I mean, we were devastated, losing that Toledo game, because it did essentially mean that, we were out of the MAC running, and it was October 29th. So, I mean, it was a meaningful late game. And it's obviously really hard to do, but our guys, absolutely want to win a MAC championship. I mean, there's no question. And we're already, working really, really hard, in 2023 it's, at Eastern, I haven't had the privilege of kind of coaching guys through that, but, at my other places, we've won back-to-back championships and won 3 in a row. And that whole, forget about the last year and start working for the next year. And, we got invited to the basketball game, halftime celebration, and we're ordering rings and having a ring ceremony at the spring game. And, you got to celebrate something that hasn't happened but twice in 131 years. But at the same time, the coach in me is like, okay, we're getting rings, but we're not going to wear them. Right. I mean, it's like the graduating seniors can wear them, but nobody else can. And why are we still talking about, 2022? Because we have a massive challenge ahead of us, in 2023. But, yeah, so we're just, both of those things are going on at the same time, and that's part of the challenge. We won 3 trophies this year. Our trophy case was empty. The first one was the Michigan MAC, and that was a really big deal.
Right.
And then we found out later that same day that we tied Toledo for the MAC West division champ. So we have a trophy for that.
Right.
And then we have a Potato Bowl trophy. So we went from 0 to 3.
Yeah. Right.
But
Yeah.
I took a picture of all of those 3 trophies in our atrium of our new football building. And in the atrium of our new football building, we have a giant replica MAC championship trophy, because people need to be reminded that Eastern Michigan has by far the most MAC championships of any MAC team. That's all sports. Now, football has not contributed but once. But when you just talk about the athletic department, we own the Mid-America Conference. So I took those 3 beautiful trophies and put them at the foot of this massive, replica MAC trophy. And I sent it to the team. And I said, does anybody notice the elephant in the room? Right. I mean, we won 3 trophies, but we did not win the trophy that we want to win, and that's the MAC championship.
We're talking with Eastern Michigan football coach Chris Creighton here on the Neathery. I'm Greg Eno from WordPress Out of Bounds blog, and you heard Big Al Beaton a little while ago, and we'll hear him again in a second. But I want to talk real quick about before we'll talk about 2023's challenge and about the recruiting class in a second. I want to just real quick touch on a couple of guys that were key players last year, this past season. And one of them was Samson Evans, the running back. And I was really struck, Coach, by his will, determination, guts, whatever you want to call it, in that Potato Bowl game. He was hurt, and I know that it killed him to not be out there at certain points of the game. But my goodness gracious, this kid, what a heart, huh?
No question. Yeah. I mean, toughness to us, is putting the team first, being obsessed with getting better, unwavering in our belief in adversity, grit and heart. That's how we spell tough. And, I mean, Samson, his grit, and his heart, and really the whole second half of the season, he was, significantly banged up, if you will. And, we had about a month, like I said, to get ready for that bowl game, and he still wasn't 100%.
Right.
But that offensive line and those tight ends love him, and he loves those guys. And we were a true team, and he just absolutely, gutted it out. And is just a really, really, really good, running back.
I saw an interview with him after the game, and I can't remember if it was on the actual broadcast of the game or if I saw it later on YouTube or whatever, but he got kind of emotional as they were talking to him after the game. And I was really struck by, I had no idea. I mean, I knew how good of a running back he was, but I had no idea the character of this young man. And I was really impressed by him. The other play I want to talk about real quick is on defense, and that's Jose Ramirez, the wonderful defensive lineman. Do you have any hunch whether or not he can play in the NFL? I mean, I know that's a tall order, but anybody who can rush the quarterback, I don't care what level of football you're playing in, you're always going to have a shot at it. And I was wondering what you thought about his. He may not get drafted, but could he go to an NFL team as an undrafted free agent maybe and make a squad?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, he led the nation in sacks per game. He was injured for a game and so didn't get to play in every game, which kept him from the outright title. But, but average per game, he led the country. And then I don't know if you watched the East-West Shrine game out in Las Vegas last week.
No.
He was awesome. I mean, he had strip sack, fumble. He had pressures. They couldn't block him. And so he's getting, I think, significant attention. They actually, after a couple of days of practice at the East-West Shrine Bowl, they invited him to the combine. So they also invited Sid So, who was at the NFLPA, All-Star game. And after a couple of days of practice, they invited him to the combine. So if I could just brag on those guys, and then Chad Ryland, you remember our kicker who graduated last year and then spent his last year kicking for Maryland, still claims Eastern and always will. We will have 3 Eastern grads in this year's combine, and they don't invite you to the combine if they don't think there's a chance that you're going to get
right. Sure,
drafted.
Of course, right, of course.
So I think that probably speaks louder than my opinion or anything like that.
Let's bring Big Al back in. What you got for Coach?
Just want to talk a little bit about your recruiting class. Speaking of program building, from all accounts, you have one of maybe the highest rated recruiting class in the MAC this year for 2023, considering you're just coming off signing day. So can you give us any highlights of some of the players you may be bringing in for next year?
Yeah, first of all, just the rankings, right? I can't complain about it and say it doesn't matter, when they make us 11th and 12th and then say they're right when we're first.
Yeah.
It is interesting to go back 4 or 5 years or 6 years with COVID and see where we were ranked and see what we did this season with that ranking. There's right. I mean, and I promise you it's not coaching, right? We recruited great players 4, 5, and 6 years ago, and they won 9 games, went and beat Arizona State. And so this year's recruiting class, my story's never going to change. I mean, we'll be able to rate these guys, in 4 and 5 years. Yeah. But we are super excited about this class. There's no question about it. And it's interesting in today's college football. We are and plan always to recruit high school, student athletes as our core. But then we've always supplemented with junior college, and now with the transfer portal, there's sort of 3 buckets. We've always, taken from 2, and we had, I think it's 9 guys here in January. We had 4 early enrollee freshmen, and then 5 transfers come in to join our team here in January. And so, there's the high school class that you can talk about. There's the junior college class, and then there's the transfers. And we're excited about all of them. I mean, we're graduating some really good players, off this year's team. You've talked about one of them with Jose, and he's kind of our featured guy on defense. And then offensively, both Dylan Drummond and Haas Beydoun, and our starting center, and Rich Bates, and then City So, at guard, who's, like I said, going to go to the combine. And then our tight end, and Gunnar Oaks. So our quarterback, Taylor Powell, who started a little over half the games. So yeah, I mean, and that's how it should be, right? I mean, you better have a great senior class, and then you better have a group of guys that you've been developing and have been a part of it and ready to take over as a leadership role and all of that. So not really answering your question, but we are, it's a pretty even split, with the, I think it ended up being 17 freshmen, which I think is, really high, probably when you look nationally, about how people are going about their recruiting. And it was, you can't have an even split with 17, but I think it was 8 and 9 offense and defense. And then, like I said, I mean, we had two receivers, a kid from Michigan State and a kid from Indiana come in at wide receiver, 3 offensive linemen, one from West Virginia, one from Colorado State, and one from Central Missouri, and then a tight end from junior college, won a national championship at Iowa Western, a corner from Iowa Western's already here, a quarterback from California, Mount Sac Junior College is already here. And, all of the transfers and junior college guys, we expect for them to, especially the guys that get here in January, we expect for them to compete and to play, in the fall, because they've got, 7-8 months to get ready and be a part of our program. The freshmen, especially the guys that get here in January, that's a tall task, to be able to, to acclimatize, if you will, and be ready to go. But every year we have some guys that, that figure it out and are able to help us.
I know you got to go. I want to ask you real quick before you go. You have a unless you filled this position, I didn't know about it. Neal Neathery, of course, your longtime defensive coordinator and linebackers coach, retired. And just a couple of brief words about Neal, Coach Neathery, and what's the game plan to replace him?
Yeah, so you're right. We started coaching together 26 years ago. When I became the head coach at Ottawa University, he was my first hire ever. I was 27, he was 25. And that first year we took a 1-8 team. We went 9-1, won a championship. And I think we looked at each other and said, I love you, and let's do this for the rest of our lives, So I got a selfie of he and I after, guys are smoking cigars. We're throwing potatoes all around. And it was he and I in the locker room after all these years. There was no other coaches in there, and took a selfie and, of these two getting older men. And I just can't, it'd be impossible for me to describe what he means to me and his family.
Right.
I've been married and raised, all 3 of our kids, in the time that we've been in relationship with the Neatherys, and
right.
My wife and I were the legal guardians to his kids before they became adults. I mean, it's a deep deal. He's the best coach I've ever met. So he is retiring from football and going to move back down to Texas and start a new career. We've already moved forward in Tabor Johnson and Ben Needham, our defensive ends coach, who's now moving to linebackers. And then Tabor was our defensive pass game coordinator, our co-defensive coordinators. And I feel awesome about the job that they're going to do. And they were a huge part of, what we did defensively this last year, some of the changes that we made. And so we're going to keep rolling.
All right. Well, I didn't realize that you had that personal relationship with Coach Neathery. That's really something. Thanks for sharing that. That really is, you're right. That is a deep deal, to use your words. Coach Chris Creighton has been here, and he's got to fly, but we really appreciate you doing this. And again, congratulations. We're right behind you all the way, and we'll have you on, I'm sure, next year as well. We'll talk about the 2023 Eagles and keep it going. Okay.
Appreciate it. Really appreciate it, guys. Thanks so much.
Take care.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.